North to South Africa, East to West Africa, TOS TV Network is your digital-first Pan-African news network, bringing you news from across the continent. Visit our website www.tostvnetwork.com and follow us on social media at TOS TV Network on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
But for social impact, maybe we shouldn't be talking about politics. Wait, is that national anthem? Who is reciting? Because it's resounding enough for me to light a candle. I mean, if every news headline were a blessing, are you all ready to count them? Arise, O compatriots. Nigeria's call, obey. Funny, I had those rhymes right in my head before I came up here. The people sent me here, the ones who are losing faith, the ones who might have a say about the nation, whatsoever state, no, current state. Now listen, whenever I'm creating a piece of art, be it a story, a poem, or graphics, I first do it from my heart. I mean, that's the way of an artist. Yet in the mirror of my conscience, there is this audience that wants to react, to feel my craft, to laugh, to respond with an applause, or just simply nod to every candid gesture and every single word. So no blank page is turned. I tailored all that I wrote. Not essentially as one would do for a social media post, because being built to perform often meant there is a concept note. A concept note highlighting the essence of a theme, and then it becomes a theme that I would serve the expectation or sentiments of all the people right before me. Like when it happens that I'm presiding with my mic, just as in open mics, I follow up on every line that strikes for body movements and the blink of an eye, for finger snapping and the faces of delight. Just about anything you would call a live feedback, which is one proof of consciousness about making an impact. Same for the times I've had to work in local communities. When using participatory approaches to communicate, every messaging void of ambiguity is carved from the people's views, interests, and needs. Like what social change if a buy-in wouldn't honor a people's creed? What's nation building? So if you knew this, for every stuff that needs fixing, it's we the people. That's how it's written. Now listen, as this shapes my reading. The Constitution, simply those bulky texts if ever reviewed by chance, could well be inspired by the loudest voices on a newspaper stand. But that fading heartbeat in the hospital without its bed space. I'm sure we all know that no citizen who's marched the streets before ever needed to lose faith because of all the issues pressing. It has one big lesson. If the nation was bad, there are people who are fixing it. Impact is the word. These people are so deep in it. And you could just be part of, be a change maker. You could just be, wait, it doesn't make you a trader. So like Hamzat Lawal, you can follow the money and ensure it is used for the issues burning. Like I've seen DK stage a couple of poems. Do you know how much you could change with a pen? Oh, not too young to run in the hands of a todo represents that color of hope on his logo. You could even see what Jake is doing with Law and his friend Fali equally shaping a lot. Even JJ came right with digital wealth while Mr. Kola Aina is still investing in tech. See what Charles of Ellington is doing with dreams of his journey was a theme that had been featured in his scene, gladly. Then Kiki Modi's Text for Grades, that documentary was a PLA for social change. All these things what is to be framed as my voice reaches for the mainstream. And all I'm saying is, if you're not changing the world, you have no business being in the limelight. So if you ever had the chance within the space of impact to shine, to glow, one advice, my friend, you can Osasu the show. Peace.
The Nigerian state is presently plagued by a myriad of issues which have the potential of shaking the very foundation upon which the state is built. While for want of time and space, it may not be possible to interrogate each and every issue, I consider it pertinent to mention the following: the structure of the Nigerian state and devolution of powers. One of the contemporary issues that have raised agitations from different sections of the country is the perceived lopsidedness in the power-sharing arrangement between the various tiers of government, especially between the federal and the state government. It is contended that the sphere of the federal government is too large to the extent that it negates the federal principle of unity in diversity. Nigeria desires a federation where the constituent units of the federation enjoy the autonomy of dealing with issues that are peculiar to them and controlling their development priorities. Arising from this feeling of a lopsided power-sharing arrangement are the calls for restructuring of the federation, devolution of power from the central to the state government in areas such as control of the police and the attendant need of state police to address the serious challenge of insecurity plaguing Nigeria, control of resources within the country, and generally the granting of greater autonomy to the states in the political, social, and economic spheres. There is the need for the Constitution to be framed in such a manner as to accommodate these diverse views. Resource control agitation. Proponents of resource control draw inferences from the provisions of Section 134 and 140 of the 1960 and 1963 constitutions, respectively, to contend that the constituent units of the Federation once enjoyed greater control over their resources than what obtained under the 1979 Constitution and the current 1999 Constitution as amended. Agitators in this regard readily point to a time when the regions controlled almost 50% of their resources, of the resources within their regions, and contributed to the running of the central government. They recall that the regions at this stage of the nation's history enjoyed greater development in accordance with their priorities, diversities, and peculiarities. The First to Fourth Amendment to the Constitution has shown that the requisite political will, the elected representative of the people can play an important role in the evolution of a people's constitution. However, the amendments so far undertaken appear to fall short of the expectation of the people as calls for devolution of power, physical federalism, state police, among others, still flourish. This has led to renewed calls for a holistic review of the Constitution and enactment of a people's constitution as a panacea for dealing with our urgent concerns, such as political marginalization by means of such formula as rotational presidency or multiple vice presidency, among others.
There are assumptions which we must clear from the outset. The first assumption is that the constitution of any country is the ground norm. It is the supreme document that defines relationships between the peoples of that country and government. So the Constitution defines how we relate with one another and how we relate with government, and all of them must be geared towards providing social order, inclusive governance, growth and protection for the citizens, and maintaining the dignity of the citizens and country. Whether we have been able to live within this light in Nigeria is a matter for another discussion someday in future. But if you reflect on where we have found ourselves as a country, it will lure you into many thoughts, dotted with all kinds of disappointments. For instance, people will complain about the state of infrastructure. Basic amenities like roads, power, water, education, and access of vulnerable members of the society to Medicare. Others will complain about lack of a functional system from local government through to the states and the federal government. Some others will see a complete disconnect between the policies at the federal level, the state level, and the local governments. Therefore, we have every reason to worry about our trajectory and the destination that lie ahead. We may ask ourselves a few questions. Judging from the reality of the fact that in a few years' time, crude oil will no longer be important, in which case a country like Nigeria should begin to look for alternative sources of livelihood and revenue, can the present constitution today guarantee that we can tap fully the benefits in our diversity in the area of agriculture? If it is true, which crop is our chief crop or crops for export in Nigeria? Are we going to look at mining? If the answer is yes, do we have the operational framework to do mining according to best global practice? Why do we have many more children out of school today than we had 10, 15 years ago? Why has it become very difficult to find statesmen? Rather, what we see is a preponderance of tribesmen and religious enthusiasts. Why have the citizens of this country suddenly lost interest and faith in government and political leadership at all levels? Why are we struggling with separatists and bandits for the soul and attention of our youth? This social dislocation is what has precipitated the palpable tension in recent times, which has unfortunately manifested in many issues and protests ranging from NSAS, banditry, separatist agitation, industrial disharmony, and even the emergence of unknown gunmen. The dysfunctional substructure of the Nigerian nation has widened the gap between the rich and the poor, and has placed government in a situation where citizens view government as a catalyst that promotes their misery rather than source of solution to their problems. There is an emergence of a vicious circle, having two very important groups at both ends of the spectrum: the political class and the poor masses. The political class has over time benefited from patronage of gullible poor masses through skewed public perception and expressed demand for pittance instead of dividends of democracy. Because of this scenario, the political class responds through primitive accumulation of wealth, which leads to lack of basic amenities. This lack of basic amenities accentuates the poverty and unemployment status of the citizens, thereby keeping the masses perpetually poor. And in turn, they look forward to the big men for pittance, at times glorifying people who have no business at all being in the business of governance. The military government, in drafting the 1999 Constitution, did not consider it crucial that adequate participation of Nigerian citizens was needed for drafting that Constitution. As such, the 1999 Constitution is deficient just like many other constitutions, but the difference is that it is both deficient and vulnerable. The vulnerability of any constitution is measured by the inability of such a constitution to promote the evolution and strengthening of institutions that are capable of buffering it from the tendencies of a powerful ruler or against a powerful leader. The most potent threats to nation building are ethnosensitivism and religious sensitivism. For an ethnosensitive country like Nigeria, a people's constitution for us should be a constitution that is capable of protecting the feelings and the aspirations of all the peoples of this country, from Borno through Adamawa to Rivers through Enugu to Ibadan. A good example is the Constitution of the United States of America, which has enough resilience to resist the tendencies of a powerful president with minimal damage to the national socio-political spine. A country like Rwanda, after their bitter civil war and ethnic strife, had to expunge tribe and religion from their national identity because it has no relevance to nation building. Another area that is worthy of some mention here is the attitude of our Constitution to the qualification of leadership. For leadership, it is strange that in a fast-paced world, such as we have today, with the latest advances in science and technology, our Constitution specifies the barest level of education as the minimum qualification to run for the highest office in our country. While the Constitution stipulates that qualification for the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is a school certificate or its equivalent. Section 318 of the Constitution takes the degradation even further by defining school certificate or its equivalent to include, among others, primary 6 school leaving certificate or its equivalent. This is a clear anomaly. Our Constitution needs to be intentional in providing clear templates for leadership selection in Nigeria.
To me, a people's constitution is like a spouse, whether the one you chose for yourself or the one married for you by your parents or others. However it began, once married, you have to meet him or her halfway in the journey to making a meaningful relationship. Otherwise, you will crash. You commit to making it work. Despite hiccups, you continue to do whatever it takes to keep it functional, and perhaps, if you work hard enough, happy. This will include frequent amendments and modifications to your own mindset, character, and expectations as a couple. Let me use this medium to implore those our compatriots who insist on a fresh constitution or nothing else as the sole way forward to help us out as leaders. They should brainstorm real-world answers to the questions I have asked above. I am sure if the conundrum is resolved satisfactorily enough for the national leadership to feel confident in proceeding, the process will be much easier to sell to every stakeholder. This is why what the Osasu Show is doing here today is so vital. We need to have more of them. For the immediate, though, especially with 2023 in view, we must continue to make progress any way that we can. Thus, may I suggest that a more viable and practical approach would be to subject the existing constitution as often as necessary or needed to review and upgrade by the twin mechanisms of legislative panel beating by amendments and judicial reconstruction through litigation. Much good can yet be done to the 1999 Constitution. It is my contention that by relying on provisions already embedded in this Constitution, we can get the present Constitution to become the Constitution we want for each stage of our national development. My proposition is supported by the experiences of older and more successful democracies. Their examples, two of which we shall examine presently, prove that a working constitution, like hot soup, is best cooked slowly and steadily. Legislative amendments and judicial decision-making may seem reactionary and slow, especially when each interest group is in a hurry to impute her own demands, but they have helped others and they can help us. A constitution is expected to be a living organism, like the society it seeks to guide. It must be able to grow and adapt to prevailing realities. In fact, irrespective of provenance or origins, how it was made, a perfect constitution, like a perfect spouse, is a mirage, simply because it is alive and growing. It does not have to be perfect all at once. It just has to be open to evolution. Even if it is made by a non-representative process or even unsavory characters, as long as it is not outrightly prescribing the unlawful or obnoxious, it can and will get better. Even when it does prescribe, those can also be amended or removed without throwing the baby away with the bathwater.
That's it for today's episode. Do follow us on social media at TOS TV Network, at Osasu Show, at the Osasu Show on Instagram, Facebook, and other social media handles. To be a part of the Osasu Show Foundation through volunteering or donating, you can find all the details on the screen. Stay up to date on our website to read the communique from the 5th edition of the Osasu Show Symposium. That's www.tostvnetwork.com. On there, you could also find news and sustainable development and current affairs across Africa. All right, next week and throughout the entire 4 weeks, actually, you'll be hearing and watching in-depth analysis and coverage of the symposium and the gala on this show. So don't miss it. You want to stay tuned to watch the entire series. All right. COVID-19 is still out there. Keep washing your hands, keep wearing your face mask, and keep practicing social distancing. God bless you all. See you next week.
North to South Africa. East to West Africa. TOS TV Network is your digital-first Pan-African news network, bringing you news from across the continent. Visit our website www.tostvnetwork.com and follow us on social media at TOS TV Network on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.